So today I want to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds: data centers. Warehouses full of servers that process the massive amounts of information needed to power the internet and advanced computing, supporting everything from cancer research to your checking account to your streaming service. We have over 80 facilities right here in New Jersey. They've created over 100,000 construction jobs, boosting tax revenue and feeding our innovation economy. But today, AI is driving an explosion in the construction of even bigger centers nationwide. There are real concerns about their impact on our energy bills, our water supply, our quality of life. And there are worries that growth is happening without transparency or concern for our communities. I know for a lot of people, things can feel out of control, like it's the Wild West, like it's happening in the dark. I hear you, and we've got your back, and I have a plan. I started on day one with immediate action to lower utility costs. We haven't seen real growth in energy demand for decades, but in the last few years, there's been an explosion. Electricity prices were up 20% last summer alone. They've been the fastest driver of inflation. So I signed 2 orders in the middle of my inaugural address to freeze utility rate hikes and to massively expand new power generation, because more power means more supply and lower costs for everyone. In my first weeks in office, we approved 6 new solar and battery storage projects that had been languishing for years. We're modernizing our state's natural gas plants, and I ended a 50-year moratorium on new nuclear power in our state. But to really bring utility rates down, we have to address soaring demand, not just supply. And data centers are the single biggest driver. Our grid operator, PJM, has said that data centers were responsible for 70% of the projected increase in demand last year. The Department of Energy says they'll account for over 10% of all power consumed in America by 2030. So today I'm stepping up to establish clear guardrails for data centers in New Jersey, the first comprehensive strategy across the country like this. It's a 4-part plan to make data centers pay their fair share by bringing their own energy to the table, to make sure they operate transparently, add value to the grid and to our communities, and support good-paying jobs long-term. For years, smaller data centers have been scattered in office parks across our state. Each needed maybe a megawatt of energy to operate, and they'd connect to the grid to get it. But today's data centers sometimes use 300 megawatts, enough to power entire towns. That skyrocketing demand is outpacing supply and jacking up all of our electric bills. Not on my watch, not on your backs. As a first step, my administration is working with the legislature to establish a set of rules to protect average ratepayers by demanding that data centers pay their own way. We're going to require them to bring their energy to the grid, contracting with their own power generators, and paying for the grid upgrades needed to handle the larger load. Instead of asking New Jerseyans to subsidize big tech, we're asking big tech to improve our grid, making it more efficient and reliable, and lowering costs for everyone. As a second measure, we're going to require transparency. People deserve to know what's being built in their communities and what shared resources are being used. Today, the public has no clue how much energy or water any of these data centers actually need. I want to mandate transparency and start by requiring data centers to report energy and water use to the public every 6 months. The legislature has been hard at work on bills to address these first 2 measures. I want to thank Majority Leader Ruiz, Senator Berzicelli, and Assemblyman Bailey and Venezia for their leadership. I look forward to working together to get strong bills to my desk as soon as possible. As a third step, we're going to make sure that data centers engage with and invest back in the communities where they build. This isn't an uncommon ask. For a long time in America, it was understood that if a business wants to thrive in a community, it has to give back to that community. So we're developing strong statewide guidelines for community benefit agreements for this industry. Deals that will require data centers to address issues like noise, light, and pollution. Deals to invest in surrounding towns and schools, housing, whatever those towns decide that they most need. Finally, the fourth plank of my plan will make sure the jobs these facilities create, initially in construction and long-term in operations, are good-paying jobs you can raise a family on. It's simple. In New Jersey, we have the best trained workforce in America. If you're going to build a data center here, you should be using union labor and paying prevailing wages. I've been clear. I'm on a mission to drive down energy costs in our state. This is an important part of that. It's government doing its job, holding bad actors accountable and shaping the future we want for our kids. Here in New Jersey, we have the most scientists and engineers per square mile, the best entrepreneurs and builders, the strategic location with dense fiber networks, world-class research institutions, and ideal climate. We are ready to innovate to power the jobs of the future. We can't do that if we let bad actors drain our resources and stick our communities with the bill. But if we work together, if we make sure that data centers pay their fair share, operate transparently, engage with our communities, we can lower costs and open the doors of opportunity for everyone. We need to get this right, because I want New Jersey to do what New Jersey has always done, lead the way. And now I'll turn it over to Senator Berzicelli to share a few words. Senator.
Thank you, Governor. I'm going to turn your pages back. I enjoyed the words so much I may just read them again. This is not an uncomplicated issue, as many in this room know, because New Jersey doesn't stand alone. Governor made reference to PJM, our regional grid operator. Frankly, I think they dropped the ball a number of years ago by not being more proactive in protecting states' interests in the overall footprint of the grid. So we're playing catch up to some degree. But everything the governor has spoken about are really good, common sense guidelines for municipalities and will provide the backbone by way of the legislation that Assemblyman Bailey has quarterbacked and given birth to in the Assembly and our part in the Senate. They're very important. But we also have to be mindful of things in this common sense approach which is needed, because technology is coming. It's always coming. So we have to adapt. The governor's pointed out the plan to adapt. Because if we don't adapt, we have to make a choice. We're either going to become an Amish community and not be part of this technology. Can't do that. Or we're going to get it right. And the key is getting it right. Governor campaigned on this. We support that. The legislative process supports the goals the governor has just outlined. We'll be moving legislation to our desk very shortly. And these are steps. But to all watching, there's not one simple solution here. It's comprehensive. We have to do our part. First, we stand up to protect New Jersey households, particularly ratepayers. The governor's called for that, and we're going to do that. And then we have to go to the broader picture. That's our partners that are in PJM. Not PJM, they don't see themselves as a partner, but the other states, because everyone. Data center gets built in West Virginia, it affects us. Big one in Delaware, it affects us. Across the river in Pennsylvania, it affects us. All these things affect us. So we have to build our way out of some of this, but that's not everything as well. We have things to do. Governor's offering real leadership. Proud to stand with her. The legislature is ready to join her in her goals. Legislation is coming. And as you all know, the legislative process isn't perfect, but we're going to work to get it the best we can. So thank you, Governor, very much, first of all, the invitation to be with you today. Always honored to stand with you and the leadership in this area, because this does take leadership. And New Jersey has a strong voice. But as I say to those watching from cameras, not easy, it's complicated. This is going to occur step by step. What you're hearing outlined today is an important step. And we have to follow through, stay focused on what matters, because again, we need jobs, but we can't force people out of their homes because they can't afford to turn the lights on. That's where the delicate balance is. We're going to figure it out. Thank you, Governor. Go ahead.
That's all right. Good morning. I'm Assemblyman Dave Bailey, and I serve in the 3rd Legislative District along with Senator Berzicelli and Assemblywoman Heather Simmons. I'm also going to use some of my notes to stay on point today and not belabor this point that's an important point to speak about. But I want to thank Governor Sherrill as well for inviting us here today and for hosting this and holding this press conference and for partnering with the legislature to establish these guardrails for the energy and water data centers consume and the burden they can place on our communities. Great to see my partner in the legislature, Assemblyman Mike Venezia, here with us today. Mike, appreciate your leadership and joining with me on the Assembly side. It is a fact that the rapid growth of data centers is straining supply and driving up the cost of electricity throughout New Jersey. There are very few times in our lives when we experience something that we can say is unprecedented. We are now experiencing that in the growth of data centers. It is a challenge across the country, but especially here in the PJM region, where we are seeing the highest concentration of data center development. However, there are steps we can take right now in New Jersey to strengthen our grid and protect our ratepayers. I commend the Governor for announcing today that we are taking those steps. For the past year, I have worked in the Assembly to push for reforms in how data centers connect to the grid, and have made it my legislative priority to create these guardrails that we speak of today for data center growth in New Jersey. Tech companies and developers should be paying for data center power usage, not my constituents. In March, I passed legislation that requires data centers to pay for the power and infrastructure they say they will need, and ask developers to build new generation in order to bring data centers online. I look forward to continue to work with Senator Berticelli and Governor Sherrill as it continues moving forward through the legislative process. We are here today with shared goals: promoting economic growth, creating union jobs, and supporting local trades, providing our municipalities with the tools to pursue smart development. But on the energy front, this is simple, pure and simple. Pay for what you say you need and invest in new power. If not, you can't connect to the grid here in New Jersey. We are committed to making sure families and small businesses aren't taking the risk of data center investment and that they're left picking up the tab. I'm passionate about this because I have a commitment to a 90-year-old widow in the 3rd Legislative District. I meet with that widow every month, and she opens her electric bill in front of me. She lives on her own, on a fixed income. She's a retired nurse. She lives in the same home that she's been living in for 54 years now. And yes, every month she opens her electric bill in front of me to hold me accountable for what that bill says. Now, I'm sure there are some of you, and Governor, you may be one of them, saying, get out of here. There is no way that you are going once a month to stand in front of a 90-year-old widow and have her open her electric bill. Well, that widow happens to be my mother. So yes, I do that. This is an urgent matter, and I want to thank Governor Sherrill for addressing it with urgency. It's now my pleasure to introduce the business manager for IBEW Local 102, Mr. David Fiore.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, I want to commend Governor Sherrill for taking a thoughtful and balanced approach on one of the fastest growing industries shaping New Jersey's future. That's data centers and AI infrastructure. Data centers have become an important part of New Jersey's economy. There's presently over 70 data centers operating as we speak, and they've been in operation for over 20 years. They support innovation, drive technological advancement, strengthen our digital infrastructure, create opportunities and investment for job growth across our state. At the same time, there are growing energy demands and smart planning, responsible policies to ensure that the growth benefits everyone. That's why the IBEW strongly supports the Governor's comprehensive 4-pillar framework and guide to responsible development. First, we support establishing fair share rules that encourage data centers to bring new clean energy generation online and contribute investments into the electrical grid that we all depend on. With the right partnership between industry, labor, government, these facilities can drive infrastructure improvements that strengthen reliability, support long-term energy affordability for New Jerseyans. Second, we applaud the efforts to improve transparency through reporting requirements on the energy and water consumption and usage. Open communication and responsible planning are essential to building public trust and ensuring sustainable growth. Third, we support the development of strong statewide standards and community benefit agreements that will ensure these projects are good for the neighborhoods and communities in which they operate. Addressing impacts like noise, lighting, and infrastructure needs while creating local investments that will help communities share in the success these opportunities projects provide. Finally, we appreciate the Governor's commitment to strong labor standards and focusing on good-paying union construction jobs, prevailing wage, and supporting the local skilled trades. The men and women in the New Jersey State building construction trades are proud to help build the critical infrastructure that powers the innovation that keeps New Jersey competitive in today's economy. The framework creates pathway for responsible growth, one that welcomes investment, innovation while protecting communities and strengthening our energy infrastructure. Ensuring that working people share in the economic benefits being created, New Jersey has an opportunity to become a leader in the next generation of digital energy infrastructure, and the IBW looks forward to working alongside the governor, industry leaders, the community, and other partners to help make that vision a reality. Thank you very much. And Julie with the Sierra Club.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Angeli Ramos, and I serve as the director for the New Jersey Sierra Club. The Sierra Club advocates nationally and in every single state where there is data center development for strong safeguards and guardrails to ensure that these facilities are developed responsibly and can actually provide benefits to the people in the communities they operate in. I'm proud to stand here with Governor Sherrill, members of the legislature, and important people in the energy community to really drive New Jersey as a leader, yet again, in an incredibly innovative industry. Rising energy costs are on the minds of families across New Jersey, myself included. What we're talking about today is a matter of fairness. Hardworking New Jerseyans should not have to shoulder the costs of data center development. Data centers have contributed significantly to the increases we're all seeing on our electric bills. We need strong guardrails to ensure that they pay for their fair share for energy, but most importantly, infrastructure costs as well, while operating responsibly and transparently, which is severely lacking. This is a moment that clearly shows that protecting the health of our communities and our environment do not come at the expense of creating policy that promotes affordability and economic development. In fact, they support the advancement of one another. We applaud you, Governor Sherrill, for announcing this comprehensive four-pillar approach to ensure data center accountability, establishing fair share rules so data centers bring their own clean energy and contribute investments to the grid we share and to help lower the costs, enacting measures to improve transparency, starting with requirements to report the purpose of the data center, what are they for, as well as their energy and water usage, particularly in the drought that we've been experiencing for the last 2 years here in New Jersey. Incredibly important. Directing the development of strong statewide standards and guidelines for community benefit agreements to ensure these facilities address the impacts of noise, light, heat, and pollution. Securing commitments around labor to create good-paying construction jobs and support prevailing wages in local trades. Innovation does not have to and should not come at the expense of our communities, the well-being of New Jersey families, and our environment. Those guardrails are a significant step forward. We look forward to supporting ongoing efforts to hold data centers accountable. And thank you, Governor Sherrill, for your leadership.
Hi, good morning. I am Mike Stanzilis, the mayor of Mount Arlington. And Governor Sherrill, thank you for your leadership on this and for bringing together labor, environmental advocates, legislators, and local government around an issue that will shape New Jersey's future for decades to come. I also want to commend Governor Sherrill for making New Jersey a leader in our region to put forward a comprehensive framework for responsible data center and AI infrastructure development. And that really matters. So because New Jersey has this opportunity not just to participate in the future of artificial intelligence, but to help lead it responsibly. So as a mayor, I see conversations throughout the lens of my residents and our communities. And as people they want economic opportunity, they want affordability, and they want good jobs, right? But they also want transparency, accountability, and confidence that development is happening responsibly. And they deserve that. So data centers are becoming, an essential infrastructure for our entire economy. About 15 years ago, if you remember, the United States made a major commitment to cloud infrastructure and hyperscale data centers. And because we embraced that opportunity, America became the global leader in cloud computing, software innovation, and digital services. Today, we are standing at another transformational moment, and that, of course, is artificial intelligence. Now, the reality is very simple. If New Jersey and the United States do not build the infrastructure necessary to support AI and advanced computing, somebody else will. And that goes, the investment goes out the window with it, the jobs, the innovation, and long-term economic leadership that will define the next generation's economy. But communities and mayors across this entire state also have the right to ask tough questions. So, how will projects impact our neighborhoods? How will energy demands be managed? How will issues like noise, lighting, water usage, and the environmental impact be addressed? These are definitely legitimate questions, and we need to have answers. The good news is that modern technology and responsible planning can address many of these concerns. Newer facilities are becoming dramatically more efficient, more energy efficient, and advanced cooling systems now recycle water through closed-loop systems rather than relying on continuous water consumption. So there's a lot of optionality out there that needs to be explored, like we discussed earlier, Assemblyman. That's why Governor Sherrill's framework is so important, because we need clear standards, we need transparency, we need fair share investment, and we need strong community benefit agreements. And municipalities need support, so local leaders, like myself, we go to the negotiating table with a position of strength, and that is ensuring data centers contribute fairly to the resources they rely on, and that our communities share directly with the benefits of AI innovation. Now, this should not be framed as a choice between protecting our communities and the economy, right? This is not an us versus them. We can have it both ways. We can do both. And New Jersey can lead the nation in responsible AI infrastructure development, creating good-paying jobs, strengthening our economy, modernizing our infrastructure, ensuring that communities share directly in the benefits of this technology revolution. We can either help shape this future responsibly or watch what happens because someone else will. So I want to thank Governor Sherrill for making this happen, taking a responsible role of leadership here in New Jersey. Thank you very much.
Okay, members of the press, we're going to take on-topic questions here, and then afterwards we'll take off-topic away from the podium. So on-topic first, please.
Governor, I've covered several town meetings where people have packed the rooms concerned about water, electricity, the impacts this is going to have on their neighborhoods. And I'm curious, first, can you detail specifically in your plan how this plan addresses those concerns? Second, I've also heard from a lot of people, specifically in Vineland, where they already have one of these data centers being built right now, and they are dealing with a lot of noise. And they are very upset about it, and they feel like they didn't have enough of a say before it was actually being constructed. I'm curious what you say to people who think these guardrails are too late.
We are putting these guardrails in place because we've heard from so many towns about the concerns they have, and without a clear path forward on how towns can engage on community benefit agreements, have transparency on electricity and water usage, knowing that data centers in our state aren't going to drive power bills higher. Without all of this protection from the state, I think communities are really not willing to move forward. And we know that if we don't do that, as you heard from Mike, we are going to give away the jobs of the future and the opportunity of the future. So what this plan lays out is a very clear pathway to prevent some of what you've seen in communities where there haven't been these sort of agreements. The community hasn't felt like they've been able to weigh in appropriately and have transparency on what's happening. So that's why we immediately got to work as we got into office, and I started to hear this. I'm not the 10-year plan governor, I'm the do-it-now governor, and that's what we're doing right now.
I was asked to ask you about a moratorium potentially on new centers coming in, and obviously you've talked about the economic impact of jobs and all that kind of stuff. Is that a consideration, or is that on the table? What
we're looking at here is a pathway forward, because we think we can do both. I think what you see here, it's really a great group of people coming together, and I think that's what New Jersey does so incredibly well, is not have everyone operate from their own stovepipe, but understanding that as the most densely populated state in the nation, we need to come together if we're going to chart a path forward. So to have mayors and members of the state legislature, to have labor, to have environmental protection agencies here all together charting out this future, we very much believe that all our problems are solvable. We just need to come to the table to solve them. That's what this plan does. I'm proud because I think it is the most comprehensive plan that's been put forward on data centers in the nation, and once again shows New Jersey's willingness to engage in the really tough problems and chart out opportunity for our future here.
Governor, how quickly would some of these requirements go into effect? Like, is there any concern that data centers would just spend the next year speeding up to build and get it done before these requirements would go into effect?
I think what you're seeing from towns is a really strong pushback. I think data centers understand that if they try to do that, they're going to see their opportunities in our state shutting down very quickly, which is why we've had outreach from data centers about what it would take to bring communities on board. That's why we are laying this out. That's why we've met with mayors, we've met with communities, that's why we've met with environmental groups, that's why we've met with labor, to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table so we can own our future. Something that was really interesting to me as I started to talk to people engaged in the technologies of the future, one gentleman said, look, we can either be controlled by AI or we can control our future and dictate how we're going to utilize AI and what it's going to look like. And that's what we're doing here. We are not going to be beholden to big tech. We are going to chart our path forward here in New Jersey.
Other on topic?
Yeah. Does today's announcement have anything to do with Kenilworth, the Kenilworth meeting being canceled? And how much electricity will Kenilworth, that plant need?
Today's announcement comes from our long work to drive down costs here in New Jersey and to be responsive to the concerns of the people of New Jersey. And it's sort of, this plan started with really the understanding of if we are going to drive down utility costs, it can't simply be expanding production. It also, we have to address the demand side. Because as you heard some of these numbers on where, I think 70% of increase we were seeing with data centers. So we're seeing huge numbers, and with that kind of demand, we're simply not going to put that on ratepayers to supply. So we need to make sure that those data centers are bringing their own energy. But at the same time, we want to understand what their utility usage is, what their water usage is. So that lays this out for towns to really understand. And then finally, we also want to make sure that towns are benefiting broadly from this kind of, if they're going to negotiate a data center in their community. But we also understand in too many cases, towns feel like, yeah, you give us all these permissions, but we don't have the expertise for these complicated negotiations with sometimes very huge companies and corporations, which is why DCA Jacqueline Suarez, our commissioner, has been working on sort of a model plan. And then Evan Weiss at the EDA right here has been working to say, and then we'll provide expertise on some of those more complicated negotiations. So what a community benefit agreement would look like is you can say something along the lines of, look, you're building a data center and we want to move AI into the curriculum at our school. So we need compute power and we want you guys to train us on that. Or you could say, yeah, that's great. We need a new community center in this town, and we'd like you to provide that. So in this way, towns can kind of chart out the best path forward for themselves.
Governor, how do you balance the requests and the needs of the people and environmental concerns with the need for advancing technology and data? I mean, we all use our phones. We all use companies like Amazon services, like AI services like ChatGPT. How do these measures ensure that 10 years from now, we're in a different place technologically, that we're not limiting our capabilities down the road?
This is how. This is how we're charting out the balance of doing both. This is why we have everybody at the table, so that we get this right. Because you have pointed out the exact focus that we have here in New Jersey, and that's making sure that as we see this new economic future, that New Jersey's leading it, that we're not being left behind in the new economy, that our kids are going to have the best jobs in the future right here in New Jersey. At the same time, this is, like I said, the most densely populated state in the nation. We have not a lot of open space. We have some really difficult environmental and climate challenges with the rise in sea level, the state that is really most affected by climate change here in New Jersey. And so we need to also make sure that as we are building this future, we're doing so in a way that makes sure we're protecting our environment, we're protecting our communities, we're protecting them from light pollution, we're protecting their water sources, that kind of thing. So this plan is how we move forward, solve for that, and are able to do both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.